everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you a collage, mixed media collage that I made. I made this during the Art Joy of Sharing live stream show, and this is the speed up version. This is my second camera, and I do a quick 4 times fast version for you so that you can take less time watching. If you really want to watch in real time, you should go over to the Art Joy of Sharing live stream channel, which is our secondary channel that I share with Peg Robinson, and you can watch me make it in real time. It took about an hour and a half. I did a little bit of fussing after the hour and a half was over, but not that much. So pretty much done in an hour and a half. I did want to use some neutral papers with some pattern, and then I also wanted to use this piece of gel printed paper. Last week on the live show, I did some gel printing using our printed out papers from Art Joy of Sharing Art Community on Facebook. In April, we did this thing called hashtag AJOS Journey, where everybody could upload their pictures or scans of their background papers that they've made, and then other people could download them, print them, and use them in their own art. So that one piece that has the pastels in the background with the brown lines on it, that's one of those. I printed it out, then I gel printed over the top of it. So that was one way you could use them. Then I just have some newspaper with Chinese writing on it. I've got some different scrapbook papers that have text on them. I have some tissue paper, and I have some paper that's from a tea bag. So you made your tea, then you just let it dry, take the flaky stuff out of it, and you have this really interesting translucent paper with a golden color to it from the tea staining. So that's what I'm doing, is gluing these torn pieces to start my background, all with these kind of neutral colors, but a lot of pattern and interest, visual texture on them. I don't want it to be boring. I just want it to be a background that has kind of a neutral tone to it, because this piece is going to have a bee on it, a honeybee, and I kind of should have made it for Earth Day last week, but I didn't. So I'm making it now. Also, the substrate is a canvas board, so it's got some gessoed canvas glued to a type of kind of like what boxes for cereal are made out of, only thicker, a little bit thicker than that. But I was talking about how you could display this piece, and I thought of a couple different ways. First of all, you could put some little wood slats on the back, a couple parallel wood slats, like molding type stuff, and then use that to string some wire and hang it as it is. And that's the reason that I'm making sure that my papers are going around the edge of the canvas. They're not just stopping at the edge and then leaving that ugly gray paper showing that's on the back of this. I am wrapping everything around so that the color will go all the way around. It's not very thick, probably maybe 1/4 of an inch thick, but at least it has a finished edge. Another way you could hang it is to get like a 12 by 12 frame, like maybe just a thin black frame with a glass, and then mount this onto a piece of matting, like a black. I would do black because I like everything framed in black myself. So I would do a black piece of matting board and attach this to the center of it. It's probably would be 12 by 12 because I think this is 10 by 10. This little weird hexagonal canvas is 10 by 10. So then just glue that into the middle of the board and then put that in the frame, so you'd have it displayed really well that way. So that would be an option. I hadn't really thought about that when I purchased these. They came in a set of 3, so I have 2 more that I can do. And like I said, they're canvas. I mean, they're designed for doing art on. So fun, different. I'll put links to this canvas board in the description box below, as well as all the other products that I used. If they're available, I'll put them as links down below the video in case you want to find something. So my most happy find that I just found in my bin, I have a stack of tissue papers, and this tissue paper with this kind of branches on it really informed what I was going to do. I knew I was going to put a bee on there, but I wasn't sure what else was going to be. Was it just going to be a huge bee in the middle, or what was I going to do? And when I put this tissue on there and then even added a little bit over the top on the one side, I realized that I wanted to make like some bushes with flowers that bees would be attracted to. Right now, my friend was telling me that the lilacs where she lives, the lilac bushes are blooming and they smell so nice, and the bees are just all over them up in Oregon where she lives. Here we have these very tall saguaros, cactuses. Those are the ones that they portray as having 3 arms. They're very tall. They're about 10 or 15 feet tall. And up on the tops and on some of the arms and stuff, they are blooming with like these white, waxy flowers. And there's one that's on my walking route. And I mean, that thing has like, I don't know, 100 bees on it. I mean, it's just, they love those white flowers. So, the bees are out, and this is a very timely collage canvas for the season. So I did want to kind of unify everything. I like having all that visual interest in the background, but I don't necessarily want it to scream at me. So I used some eye zinc glaze. This is made by Altadene, and I bought it from Seth Apter. I used that first as kind of a yellowy color, a color of tea or coffee or something. And I put that on first. Then I decided what I really needed was like a light area, not right in the center, but to the little bit to the right of the center. So I used some glazing medium, which is acrylic paint with no pigment in it. And I put some titanium white in there to dilute, and then put like a white area, and then kind of pounced it back with a wet baby wipe. So that was my finished background. And then I'm now tearing some bright pink and purple and lighter pink pieces of paper. One of them is, it's got, I think, probably watercolor on it dropped onto it. It's been crinkled, and I'm not sure what kind of paper it is. It's something that someone sent me, but it's kind of wrinkly, but it has these really bright colors on it, bright purple, bright pink. I'm using that. The reason I think was probably fluid watercolors or something, and I might have actually even made it, maybe somebody didn't send it to me, is because I am getting a little bit of pink bleed as I'm putting these on. But I'm using a Liquitex matte gel medium, which doesn't suck out color as much because it's a gel formula. So it's not bothering me, but I did notice that paper that I was using, which is just something I have. I mean, I have so much paper. It's just something I had, and I like the colors. The other one is a leftover piece of a gel print that had a lot of lines on it, which I thought made it more interesting to have all that pattern on it. So I'm tearing them into little shapes. I think people would be inclined to just cut. But for me, I think the torn random shapes are a lot more interesting when you're trying to do something with nature. So I'm kind of tearing them in maybe kind of a teardrop or a hook shape, but I'm making them all different. Nothing is the same. And then I'm putting them together and making little flowers, because the bee would be attracted to the pollen in the flowers. It would want to come and get the pollen. So, that made sense. So I had started drawing my honeybee on a piece of deli paper before the show started, because I wasn't sure how long it would take me. Also, I like to concentrate a little bit when I'm making a sketch, and sometimes it's difficult on a live stream when people are talking and Peg's talking and people are typing, and it's a little bit distracting. So I did start my sketch before the show, but I finished it up a couple little bits, and then now I'm drawing over it with a permanent black pen. And you may wonder, why am I not doing it on the canvas? Well, this is the way that I like to do this type of collage. I like to have a piece of thin paper, collage onto that, and then cut it out so that I don't have to sit there and be so fussy. I did have to fuss a little bit, but teeny tiny little pieces staying within the lines when you're collaging is sometimes a little bit difficult. And apparently speaking is difficult today too. So I wanted to do it on the paper and then cut it out and glue it on. So that's what I did. This was something that I came up with a few years ago when I want to do it precisely, but I still want to do torn paper. So I picked out some different colors of paper. The most interesting being that kind of clean up tissue paper that has the shapes of rectangles on it from a stencil. This was probably a piece of tissue paper that I laid over a dirty stencil and picked it up. And that gives kind of, you know how wings, bee wings and dragonfly wings and all the wings have those little scales on them? I thought that adding a little bit of that interesting paper would give you the idea in your brain of those little sections on the wings. I'm also using some light blue from that gel printed paper. It has, I know it's hard to see, and maybe you'll be able to see when the close-ups come, but it had crackle on it. The original person who made the background scanned it, and I printed it out, made it with crackle medium. Might have been Peg actually, because she was using a lot of crackle medium recently. And you could see those crackles in that paper. And so I wanted that as part of that same idea of the wings having scales or texture or something on them. And then I have just some other different little pieces of paper, some black, some different colors of yellow. Also still with pattern though, a lot of pattern on them. They're not just plain pieces, they're interesting pieces. That's what I like to use for my collage. And I am gluing them on with that same matte gel medium, but I'm not forcing myself to stay within the lines. I am a little bit. If the line is going to matter on the pattern of what I'm going to cut out, I will stay within the lines. But if the line isn't going to matter, if it's on the outside of the image, I can just let the paper go over it. You know, like that head of the butterfly, not butterfly, bee. My phone just distracted me. The head is not, you know, I will cut that down into the correct shape. It's just a little piece that I glued over it. And like all these little silly legs that are going to have to be cut out. There's no way I was going to take little pieces of torn paper and try to make it so tiny that it was going to be on there. It's better to just glue over the whole thing and then cut it out later into the shapes, especially the things like the legs. I did not collage the antenna of the bee. I'm just going to paint them on because they were just way too small to even cut out. So that was fine. But I'm adding all the little pieces. I'm also thinking about highlights and shadows as to what color I put where. Like I have a brown at the top of that black stripe. So that's like the lighter area, and then it gets darker as it goes down. And same thing with the yellows, thinking about where the light would be shining on the bee. So this is when it's really paper painting. I'm using the paper as brush strokes to paint my bee, basically. I know that sometimes confuses people. So I'm almost done collaging this little bee, and I'm going to cut him out with a sharp pair of scissors. After it's dry a little bit, dry it with my heat tool, try to get it dry and smooth. So then, yeah, a little bit of fussy cutting. And the head was a little bit tricky because I had collaged it with black and I had a black line and I couldn't see. So it took me a little time to do that part. And then the back legs were a little bit, I couldn't figure out exactly where they went either. But you get the idea of how that technique works. So now I'm gluing that on, and of course that little thin piece of deli paper on the back doesn't even show. You don't even know it's there. It's sandwiched in between the colorful papers and the background paper. So it's a good way to do collage. So then I fussy up a little bit of the flowers, add a couple, I think I add one more, add a few petals just to have them everywhere where that piece of tissue paper that had the branches on is. Have him around the bee so that he has a lot of options of which to get the pollen from. So just a little bit of finishing up with some collage, and then I'll be done with that. Start on to the detail work. I hope you're enjoying this video, and if you are, if you think it's valuable, please give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment below if you really want to say that you liked it. A positive comment, that would be nice. You can also, of course, subscribe. If you want a idea of when a new video comes out, you can turn on that notification bell. You can pin this on Pinterest. You can share it on Facebook with somebody who you know loves bees. Yeah, all those things help my channel by letting YouTube algorithm know that my content is valuable so that they can recommend it to someone else. So I'm always grateful when you do those things. So this is a Pentel color brush pen. It has a sepia colored ink, watercolor ink in it. And I'm using it just to reinforce the base of the flowers and to reinforce where the branches are if they didn't quite connect with my tissue paper collage. And then I've got a Pitt Artist brush pen in like a light brown, golden brown color. And I'm going around the outside of my collaged bee and then blending that with my water brush to make sure that the bee is integrated into the background. I'm also going to go and add a few little shadows around with that same pen amongst my flowers and branches and blend it with my water brush. This is an India ink. It's permanent when dry, but you have a couple seconds in which you can blend it while it hasn't quite dried down to the substrate yet. So I also made like little cups at the bottom of the flowers to show that they're attached to the branches. I guess that's how I would say it. So that's just a little bit of detail work that I think is important in collage. I think we should add shadows and highlights in collage to make everything integrated with itself and all part of the picture and not just looking like a sticker that got stuck on there. So then I got out a little bit of black pen and just did some detail lines on my bee. What pen is that? I can't even tell. I think that's just like an illustration pen, maybe. I can't tell if that's my pocket brush or if it's or maybe it's my pocket brush pen. I don't know. Anyway, some type of black pen, either India ink or pigment ink, in a finer tip to just make a few little illustration lines to clarify some of the stuff. And then I'm going to get out my white Posca pen and do some highlights. This is supposed to be a honeybee, and honeybees are furry, fluffy. They've got fur on them. Somebody left me a comment the other day on a different video that I did that said that they used to pet honeybees, that they would let them land on their hand and then pet them. And I thought, that's really cool. I've never done that. And they said they were so soft. So I want to add some textury looking stuff with my Posca pens to make it look like the bee has that fuzzy, soft fur, and also adding just some highlights into the wings with the white. So I use my white fine tip Posca pen, which is an acrylic paint pen, and also my black one to do that, and also to add a little bit of detailing around the eye, some highlights in the eye. Insects have that strange multi-lens eye, so you want to have a few highlights. I've drawn in my antenna, and yeah, I think I'm just about done here with this. Some highlights on the flowers with the white pen as well to bring that bright white highlight back in that isn't anywhere else except for on the bee. Since it's on the bee, I want it everywhere else too. So yeah, I hope this was fun for you, and maybe you try something like this. It was fun for me. So here come your close-ups. That's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.